There was a time when men were built for storms, when silence wasn't weakness but preparation, when scars weren't shameful, they were proof, when the world didn't care how you felt, and that made you stronger. But today, the modern man feels tired, soft, confused. He scrolls, he reacts, he obeys. He's not feared, not respected, not even by himself. He's told to be nice, to be harmless, to be agreeable. But no one tells him the cost of obedience. No one tells him that power never comes to those who wait politely for it. This isn't a crisis of testosterone. This is a crisis of purpose. Her slow erosion of identity, masked as progress. Somewhere in history, the blueprint for strength, for leadership, for power, was buried. And if you want to find it, you'll have to unlearn what you've been taught. Forget being a good man, and learn how to be a capable one. The man you were meant to be was written in the margins of ancient strategy, ruthless logic, and cold, beautiful truth. It's time to remember what they wanted you to forget. He wakes up tired, even after 8 hours of sleep, grabs his phone before his feet touch the ground, scrolls through opinions, bodies, headlines, all before brushing his teeth. He doesn't own his time. His calendar does, his boss does, his addictions do. He says he wants freedom, but he fears responsibility. He says he wants peace, but he can't stand silence. He says he's a man, but hasn't earned the title. The modern man has been domesticated, neutered by comfort, numbed by noise. He's constantly entertained, but never fulfilled. Constantly connected, but deeply alone. He was raised to be good, not great. Told to be safe, not strong. Encouraged to be sensitive, but never strategic. So now he walks through life unsure of what to protect, who to become, or why he feels so empty. This isn't just personal failure. It's a cultural one, a civilization-wide detour from meaning. Masculinity today is treated like a disease. Ambition is labeled as toxic. Assertiveness is mistaken for aggression, and weakness is celebrated as virtue. But the world doesn't reward virtue. It rewards competence. It rewards those who can move things, shape things, decide things. The ones who don't ask for permission. Deep down, most men know this. They feel it in the quiet moments when no one is watching. The restlessness, the frustration, the aching to become something more than a bystander in their own lives. He isn't just lost. He's unmade, disconnected from an older archetype, one that carried fire in his eyes and direction in his blood, a man who knew how to lead, how to endure, how to dominate not others, but himself. Where did that man go? You won't find him in modern movies, in political speeches, or therapy circles designed to neuter rather than heal, but he once existed, and his blueprint didn't come from pop psychology or motivational gurus. It came from a man whose name still echoes through the halls of power, Machiavelli, a name that triggers unease because he spoke the truth most are too afraid to say. He didn't write for the weak. He wrote for rulers, for warriors, for men who understood that life isn't fair but power can be earned. He knew the difference between appearing good and being effective, and he knew that the world doesn't belong to the kind-hearted. It belongs to the competent. If the modern man wants to reclaim his identity, he must start there. In the ashes of forgotten strategy, buried under centuries of social conditioning, this isn't about becoming violent or cruel. It's about becoming dangerous and choosing when not to be. That's real control. The journey ahead is brutal, uncomfortable, but necessary, because the world doesn't need more passive dreamers. It needs men who know who they are, men who carry storms behind calm eyes, men who can lead, not just themselves, but others. The modern man is lost, but he can be rebuilt. And Machiavelli might just be the one to show the way. When Niccolò Machiavelli wrote The Prince, he wasn't trying to create a code of ethics. He was doing something far more dangerous. He was holding up a mirror, not to how men should behave, but to how they do behave. Stripped of illusion, stripped of idealism, just raw strategic truth. He believed that if a man wanted to rise, to lead, to build, to survive, he had to understand power as it really works, not how society decorates it, not how religion romanticizes it, but how it actually moves. And according to Machiavelli, power doesn't belong to the kind. It belongs to the capable. He made it clear, it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Why? Because love is conditional, fleeting, but fear, when properly earned, commands respect. It deters betrayal. It establishes authority. Now, that doesn't mean cruelty. Machiavelli didn't admire tyrants, he admired control, of self, of image, of outcomes. To him, morality wasn't the enemy. It was simply a luxury. A tool you used when convenient, and discarded when survival demanded it. And that's what modern men struggle with. They've been taught that to be good is to be soft. That strength is selfish, that compromise is always noble. But Machiavelli would laugh at that, not out of mockery but realism. He understood that life is a series of conflicts, personal, social, political, and in conflict, virtue alone doesn't win. Strategy does. Consider the men who actually shape history, not the ones who wish for change, but the ones who engineer it. They rarely follow the rules, they write them. Machiavelli didn't glorify violence, but he respected precision. He wrote about how a prince should appear merciful while knowing when to be ruthless, not because it's cruel, but because sometimes mercy at the wrong time causes more suffering later. This is where modern men falter. They confuse being liked with being effective. But approval is a weak currency in the real world, especially when you're building anything that matters. A Machiavellian man understands the battlefield, in business, in politics, in personal life. He doesn't panic when others disapprove. He doesn't seek applause, he seeks results. He studies outcomes, not intentions. He plays the long game. He knows how to wait, how to act, and, when necessary, how to strike. But above all, he understands power dynamics. Not in a manipulative way, but in a strategic one, because Machiavelli's real message wasn't be evil. It was be dangerous, be calculated, be ready, and when you are strong enough, you can afford to be kind. That's the key. Kindness, without strength, is ignored. But kindness backed by power is remembered. It's chosen. It means something. So what does that look like today? It means learning how to lead, without waiting for permission. It means choosing your words carefully, not for approval, but for impact. It means saying no when you must, even if it makes you unpopular. And most of all, it means taking full responsibility for your outcomes. No excuses, no blame. That's what Machiavelli would call a capable man. One who isn't reactive but deliberate. One who doesn't just feel counts but thinks. One who isn't ruled by his emotions but knows how to weaponize them when the time is right. Modern society teaches men to hide their edge. Machiavelli teaches them to sharpen it and use it with purpose. Because the world doesn't reward good intentions. It rewards effectiveness. And if the modern man wants to rise again, he must stop asking to be liked and start learning how to become unshakable. Strip away the politics, strip away the philosophy, and you're left with this. Human beings are wired to follow strength, from ancient tribes to corporate boardrooms, from emperors to influencers. The one truth that never changes is this. We trust the competent. We follow the powerful, not the nicest, not the loudest, the ones who radiate certainty, who make decisions and own the consequences, who don't flinch. It's psychological. It's primal. In a world full of uncertainty, the person who appears most in control wins, even if they're wrong, even if others hate them. They win because control feels safe, and people crave safety more than anything. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He didn't invent manipulation, he simply decoded it. He wrote about how leaders must project confidence, stability, and decisiveness, not because they're moral traits, but because they trigger submission in others. That's the dark, hard truth. People don't follow the truth. They follow the signal of power. It's why tyrants rise, why weak men get overlooked, why confidence often outweighs competence, and why society sometimes chooses strong liars over uncertain truth-tellers. It's uncomfortable, but it's real. Even in our personal lives, this psychology runs deep. Look around. Who gets promoted? The one who quietly works hard, or the one who asserts presence and speaks with certainty? Who's desired? The man who apologizes for existing, or the one who takes up space with unapologetic direction? The truth is, leadership is never given. It's taken, and sustained through psychological control, not force, not cruelty, but understanding what people need to believe and delivering it with conviction. The modern man loses this battle because he's told to be agreeable, to avoid conflict, to soften his voice, to wait until it's his turn, but strength never waits. Because the world doesn't organize itself around fairness, it organizes around gravity. And powerful people create gravity. They don't just talk, they decide. They don't just react, they frame. They shape how others see reality, because they speak like they know what's coming. This is why certainty is magnetic. It signals leadership. It calms the chaos in others, and it creates control, not just of outcomes, but of perception. Machiavelli would argue that a man who understands this psychology can bend the world, not through dominance, but through clarity and courage. Most people are lost, confused, and overwhelmed. They want someone who makes the world feel navigable. And when you become that person, they follow. But here's the danger. If you don't become that person, someone else will. And they may not have your intentions. They may not even have your ethics. But if they speak with more certainty than you, they win. That's the game. Not fairness, psychological leverage. And that means the modern man must stop seeking validation. Stop over-explaining. Stop asking for permission to lead. He must learn how to create emotional certainty in others, even when he's still figuring things out himself. That's not deception. That's leadership. It's walking into a room and making people feel like you know where you're going. And when you do that, the world rearranges itself around your presence. That's control. Not of others, but of energy, of direction, of reality. Because at the end of the day, the man who controls perception controls the world. Leadership isn't about titles. It's not about charisma. It's about psychological warfare. Because in every interaction, every meeting, every relationship, every negotiation, someone is influencing, and someone is being influenced. Someone is framing reality, and someone is accepting it. This is the invisible battlefield no one talks about, and Machiavelli knew it better than anyone. He didn't write about leadership in terms of emotional intelligence or popularity. He wrote about it as a war of perception, a war where the sharpest mind, not the kindest heart, wins. The battlefield? It's not fought with weapons. It's fought with tone, posture, timing, silence, suggestion, psychological moves that bypass logic and sink into the emotional core of everyone around you. Because here's the truth most won't admit. Humans don't follow logic. They follow feeling. They follow presence. They follow those who can create emotional certainty, even in chaos. That's why a mediocre speaker with confidence will influence more people than a genius who doubts himself. Why entire empires have risen and collapsed, not through violence, but through carefully crafted illusions of control. This isn't manipulation. It's strategic emotional leadership. It's understanding that fear, shame, admiration, and desire are the levers of the human soul. And whoever knows how to pull those levers controls the room. Modern men are losing this war. They've been trained to seek harmony, not dominance, to be transparent, not strategic, to be liked, not remembered. But leadership requires something deeper, a ruthless understanding of human insecurity. The best leaders know how to anchor themselves in the minds of others, not through pressure, but through precision. They know how to speak to people's subconscious fears and deepest aspirations. They use pauses as weapons. They use silence as dominance. They don't talk more, they talk better. Think of the most influential men in history. They weren't necessarily the smartest or the most moral. They were the most psychologically calibrated. They knew when to speak and when to withhold. They knew when to appear humble and when to appear unstoppable. They knew that humans don't need a leader who has all the answers. They need a leader who can make decisions in a storm. That's what Machiavelli wrote about. Not kings and princes in the fairy tale sense, but men who understood the mind. Men who used perception as power. In today's world, this is more relevant than ever, because we're surrounded by noise, content, opinions, outrage, all fighting for attention. And attention is the new currency. Leadership now is about controlling attention. And the ones who do it best, they don't scream, they don't over-explain. They control attention by controlling emotional gravity. They speak with the weight of conviction. They walk like they know where they're going. They say less and mean more. And people follow them, not because they're right, but because they seem anchored in a world full of drift. That's power. That's warfare. You're not fighting to dominate people. You're fighting to own the narrative in their minds, to be the voice they recall when they face fear, to be the signal of strength when everything else feels uncertain. But here's the secret Machiavelli understood. You cannot win psychological wars if you're at war with yourself. If you're full of self-doubt, you leak it. If you're unclear, you transmit it. People subconsciously register your indecision and mirror it back to you, so leadership starts internally. With discipline, with mental clarity, with emotional control, because before you can influence others, you must conquer yourself. The modern world rewards the man who knows how to do this, not just act strong, but be composed, calculated, and emotionally deliberate. Because real leadership isn't loud. It's not flashy, it's quiet, firm, and unforgettable. And it wins, not through intimidation, but through invisible warfare. The battlefield is the mind, and your ability to move unseen through it. That's what separates the forgotten from the unforgettable. The world today has bred comfort, and comfort breeds weakness. It's easy to fall into the trap of instant gratification, checking your phone, scrolling endlessly, avoiding any discomfort that could push you towards something greater. Yet real transformation, the kind that leads to true power, doesn't come from avoiding discomfort. It comes from seeking it out, embracing it, and using it to sharpen yourself. Machiavelli understood this truth better than anyone. He never preached cruelty for cruelty's sake. What he promoted was discipline, the discipline to act with purpose, to control emotions, and to build a life based on strategic action. Power, he knew, is not found in idealism. Power is found in calculated actions, in understanding the game, and in mastering oneself before attempting to master the world. In today's world, it's easy to let the chaos of the outside world dictate our actions, our thoughts, and our feelings. But Machiavelli's teachings remind us that discipline is the backbone of power. Without it, even the most brilliant mind will falter. Without discipline, you cannot control your impulses, your desires, or even your comfort. The man who is ruled by his desires is not a man of power. He is a pawn in someone else's game. Power comes when you are not enslaved by the comforts of life, but when you choose the discomfort that leads to growth. Take calculated generosity, for example. It's not about kindness for the sake of kindness. It's about managing appearances, maintaining loyalty, and ensuring that those around you are always in your debt, but never enough to weaken your position. It's a strategic form of generosity, not a selfless one. You give, but only when it benefits you in the long run. This is not manipulation for manipulation's sake. It is understanding human nature, and using that understanding to build alliances and maintain influence. But it's not just about how you interact with others. Mastering discomfort is a skill you must develop within yourself. The true test of a man's strength is his ability to endure hardship, to persist through moments of vulnerability, and to stay grounded when the world around him is chaotic. The discomfort of failure, the discomfort of pushing past your limits. This is where growth happens. The world will try to lull you into complacency, but it is the man who can embrace discomfort, who can stay uncomfortable, that truly grows. Equally important is emotional detachment. We live in a world where emotions often dictate our decisions. Fear, anger, shame, they all have a way of clouding judgment, distorting actions, and leading to impulsive mistakes. Machiavelli knew that a true leader is one who can detach from these emotions, not allowing them to take over. Whether it's fear of failure or the desire for validation, these emotions are tools. You must control them. A man who can detach himself from the emotional weight of the world is a man who can act decisively, with clear vision. When emotions don't cloud your thinking, you can create, destroy, and take action without hesitation. This brings us to the idea of decisiveness. Too many men today waste time dithering, caught in endless cycles of doubt and indecision. They hold back, fearful of making the wrong choice, and as a result, they miss opportunities. Every moment you waste in hesitation is a moment lost. Act decisively, even when the path is unclear. The world moves fast, and those who hesitate are left behind. Machiavelli taught us that true leaders are those who act quickly, firmly, and without regret. They don't second guess. They decide and move forward, adjusting along the way if necessary. You must also come to understand that you are not here to be liked. Being liked is a secondary concern. Being respected is paramount. The world will throw distractions your way, temptations of comfort, fleeting pleasures, and easy routes. But those things are not the path to power. To be truly powerful, you must stand firm in your purpose. You must rebuild yourself according to principles that will make you respected, not liked. You must learn the art of strategic control, of mastering your emotions, and of living with discipline. These are the foundations of power. Rebuilding yourself requires that you confront your weaknesses head-on. It means refusing to accept the easy path, choosing instead the harder road of self-control, of emotional mastery, and of strategic discipline. It's about looking at yourself in the mirror and deciding to become someone who is not controlled by the world, but someone who controls the world around him. This is the foundation upon which all true power is built. The modern world is not lacking in people, it's lacking in leaders. Men today are told that their worth is in their comfort, in their ability to be liked and accepted. But this is a lie. True worth, true power, lies in your ability to stand apart from the herd, to live by a code that not only respects yourself but commands respect from others. We look around us and see a world teetering on the edge. Political corruption, fatherless homes, an epidemic of mental health crises. Society is crumbling. And yet, the most crucial element for repair is missing. Men of strength, men of integrity, men who understand the nature of power. These men are not just warriors, they are philosophers. The ancient warrior codes weren't just about physical strength, they were about wisdom, about using power with a sense of responsibility. Power without wisdom is chaos. Wisdom without power is weakness. A warrior philosopher understands that true strength comes from a balance of mind and body, of heart and action. This is where you must step in. Your era needs you. It needs men who understand the world as it is, not as they wish it to be. Men who embrace the harsh truths of life, that the world is not kind, that compassion can often be a mask for weakness, and that only through strength, both mental and physical, can one rise to the top. What has happened to the leaders of today? They've become comfortable, detached from the struggle that makes men great. They've sold their souls for popularity, for comfort, for power without substance. But this is the age of the warrior philosopher, the man who lives with purpose, who can see the world for what it is, and still chooses to fight for what is right, even when the odds are against him. The warrior philosopher does not hide behind ideals. He doesn't wear rose-colored glasses. He sees the ugliness of the world, understands the human condition, and adapts. He understands the nature of power, how it works, how it can be used, and how it must be wielded carefully, lest it corrupt. This man does not just seek to rule, but to lead by example. He leads with strength, with wisdom, and with the understanding that to lead is to serve those who follow him. Look at the great leaders throughout history: Napoleon, Caesar, Alexander the Great. Men who combined ruthless ambition with a deep understanding of human nature. They were not mere conquerors. They were philosophers in their own right, studying the minds of men, understanding fear, ambition, loyalty, and greed. They mastered the game not just with strategy, but with psychological insight. Modern men are too often told to avoid discomfort, to avoid challenge, and to retreat into the safety of their homes. But it is precisely discomfort that will shape you into the man you need to become. The warrior philosopher doesn't run from challenges. He confronts them head-on. He knows that every battle, whether external or internal, is an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to improve. This mindset, the willingness to face discomfort, to thrive in adversity, is what will elevate you. We live in an age where convenience is prized, where ease is worshipped. But ease does not breed greatness. Greatness is forged in the fire of struggle, in the willingness to push through pain, to sacrifice, and to endure. If you want to rebuild the modern world, it starts with rebuilding yourself. You must become the type of man who is unwavering in his purpose, who does not flinch in the face of fear or failure, and who has the fortitude to stand alone if necessary. What does the world need most right now? It needs men who are willing to speak truth when it is unpopular, who are willing to stand tall even when the crowd shouts for them to kneel. It needs men who don't just follow the rules of the world. They need men who write their own rules. Men who do not wait for permission to lead, but who take the initiative and take action no matter the cost. The warrior philosopher is not swayed by the distractions of today's world. He does not lose himself in fleeting pleasures or shallow pursuits. He understands that life is short, that time is precious, and that every moment should be spent in the pursuit of greatness, of wisdom, and of strength. The world has room for many followers, but it only has room for a few true leaders. Your era needs you to step up and fill that gap. Become the man who can't be ignored. Become the man who stands for truth, for strength, and for wisdom, regardless of the cost. Become the warrior philosopher the world so desperately needs. You've heard the truths that too many men are too afraid to confront. The world doesn't need more followers, more complacency, or more excuses. It needs leaders. It needs warrior philosophers, men who have the discipline, strength, and wisdom to rise above the chaos and take control of their lives. Now the choice is yours. Will you continue to live in comfort, letting the world pass you by? Or will you take action today, begin the process of rebuilding yourself, and start creating the future you deserve? Start now. Choose to step into discomfort. Choose to embrace the challenge. Pick up the principles we've discussed, integrate them into your daily life, and begin shaping yourself into the man you're capable of becoming. This is your call to greatness. Take the first step. Subscribe. Share this video with those who need to hear this message, and start a conversation about what it means to truly live with power, purpose, and integrity. The world is waiting for leaders. It's time for you to answer that call. Become the man the world can't ignore.